to Pilates Chicks. We don't, again, know what our theme music is, but we're coming to you from our
two Pilates Chicks studios.
Yay! In Los Angeles. It's official. We're in the same space. And today we're a little nervous. We figured that one out because of our topic. And we don't really have a title yet. We'll kind of figure it out. But this came to us because of an email we got. For those that know Kevin Bowen in Santa Fe, he's helping, or he is giving, I'm babbling now, Eve Gentry's work. And it was kind of his email and conversation that sparked this podcast.
Yeah, the idea to come back to this topic. It is a topic we've discussed before in different ways in a few different previous episodes. But the idea,
come up before.
Yeah, and it is worth coming back to, as he even writes in his email blast that this inspired. He wrote, I've written about this before, and it's worth coming back to discuss again because it is just constant and so prevalent, and that is
it keeps coming up.
Yeah. So what is it we're talking about?
What are we talking about?
Online and Pilates, social media and Pilates, Instagram.
Yep.
What we're seeing being posted.
How it's you're having these social so-called influencers who have millions of followers. They're doing Pilates, but maybe they've actually not been trained in a comprehensively trained program. They're maybe not even Pilates teachers.
Yeah, they might not even have been through any training. Maybe they've just done Pilates for a long time. It's these people, we see this in every industry, right? So the influencers of, you name it, whatever industry, we see it in medical fields where people are giving advice.
PR, marketing.
Yeah. And
everything.
People are giving advice that they don't actually have any credentials to give advice from.
But it's confusing for those that are on just scrolling, right? Because it's not like in Instagram or TikTok or whatever, you're seeing someone's bio and all their education. It's just this video and basically like a little blurb of maybe something they're
and most people don't even read those blurbs anymore.
They're just looking.
So you're just seeing this video and all of these suggested things that Instagram does now where it's like, oh, you like this, so maybe you like
I'll show you this, yeah.
So then you get more and more of these fitness influencers, and it's an interesting discussion for Pilates specifically, I think, because we have so much combativeness in the industry about what is Pilates and what counts.
And what is not.
Yeah. And so the idea of there are these fitness influencers, Pilates influencers, maybe they are, maybe not certified as Pilates teachers, and they're showing a lot of things that may or may not be considered Pilates and may or may not even be safe. And teachers, new and experienced alike, are coming to their mentor teachers and their teacher training programs saying, oh, well, I saw this. Why am I not learning this? Or I saw it done this way. Why is this the right way? And so people are confused and second-guessing themselves.
And I think that's one of the things that stuck out because, Kevin Bowen is carrying on Eve Gentry's work. So they're learning Eve Gentry's work. They're learning Joseph Pilates' work. And I have it in my own, where they're learning the exercises that Eve Gentry did, Joseph Pilates, and then the students come in and say, well, you taught me it this way, but I'm seeing it this way online.
Yeah.
It's like, are you teaching me right?
Yeah.
And it's like, we're teaching you the original work. But it's confusing for students because they're like, well, I saw it this way.
Yeah. I'm like, so how do I know what's right?
Exactly.
And so there is a level of foundational work that people need to go through to be able to say, I am a Pilates teacher. And we are allowed to, with experience and moving forward in our careers, you are allowed to be creative and you are allowed to come up with things from that foundational work and adaptations and adjustments for clients as they need.
Yeah.
And so I think our basic idea is, let's look at what our client needs
in this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like what you just said is experience when you're teaching.
Yeah.
And having the foundation in your toolbox. And then I think Kevin Bowen talked about we need to think about what is the expectations as a teacher. Mm-hmm. What are we teaching? How are we teaching? What's the purpose of this exercise? Is there a purpose?
Yeah.
And why am I giving it to this client?
Yeah. And it goes back to just that same idea of like always teaching the body in front of you what this person needs. And for a newer teacher, that usually means you just stick to the foundations that you were taught in your program because you don't yet have the experience and understanding to be able to make those creative choices. Right. But as you learn more and you can do more and understand and the intuitive ideas and the learned knowledge, you can make those choices.
Yeah, and I think I think also it comes, and I won't use Kevin's language, but he talked about how there is some stuff you're seeing on social media that is creative and does have a purpose, and then there's others that's just not good. And I think that especially for newer teachers, when they're learning Pilates and going through their training, they think, oh, the client's going to get bored.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So I need to keep learning new things.
Yeah.
Because they're going to get bored.
Or new exercises.
Or whatever it is. And then they just start throwing those things because they saw it on Instagram or whatever it is and not thinking about why am I giving this to the clients? What is the purpose of this?
Yeah.
Does this body need this?
Yeah. And I also think, what is this equipment designed for is a big one too, because the safety is a huge part of it.
Because we've talked about that definitely in previous episodes.
Yeah.
Of seeing things on the Cadillac with people doing things with the push-through bar that you're just like, oh,
yeah.
That is not made to support that.
That carabiner can't really hold that velocity or weight.
Not a good plan.
But it really comes back to the idea of critical thinking, where teachers need to be taught how to think, which is why, like a lot of our workshops that we run, we like to say we're not talking about teaching you how to do certain things. We're teaching you how to think about these things.
Exactly.
To make the choices for yourself in the best way possible.
Did we already say Kevin's quote?
Oh, the quote we like? No, we didn't.
So on that critical thinking, it's the oh, it went away. What happened? Okay, so
his quote that we liked.
Yeah, that we liked.
From his email that inspired this whole
So this
discussion.
is Kevin Bowen, and he actually said in the email, feel free to use my quote. So we are.
So we will.
So we will. Critical thinking is necessary for longevity in this profession, meaning Pilates. Without it, one is doomed to mediocrity. I can never say that word. Mediocrity at its best. So I think that's actually one thing that as a teacher you have to really, like we talked about, work on and learn is that critical thinking. It's not something that just is automatic.
No, I mean, that's something that comes with constant learning, continuing education, and experience. But really taking a step back from what we're seeing online and using that thought and saying, okay, is that exercise appropriate for me to teach in my knowledge of what it is, of what this exercise is? Is it appropriate for this client to be doing in what their bodies may or may not be able to do, what they may need? Is it appropriate for this type of equipment? There's lots of questions that we can ask ourselves to spur that critical thinking.
Yeah.
And kind of analyze what it is we're seeing.
I think a lot of it, and I want to say it was like one of our most recent episodes, not the posture and pain, but maybe the one before that, when we talked about the ego of the teacher and realizing that what we think the client needs, or them getting bored, or being, about them being able to do this thing, is really that critical thinking of, no, this is what, in this moment, this person needs to connect with or move or know or learn, instead of like, oh no, I need them to be able to whatever Pilates circus move you want to do.
It's like taking ourselves out of it instead of saying like, I want to seem like a fantastic teacher because all my clients can do whatever exercise.
Exactly.
And they're never bored because I give them new things every time.
All the time. And I think that's like the expectations of teaching. It's like, I don't remember where I heard this in what teacher, but it was like, expect less from your clients. Like, don't think that they're going to like give you this like be all end all, whatever. It's like, just expect less and go with what you're seeing.
Yeah. So take the perfectionism out of it.
Take the perfectionism out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I struggle with a lot of my students with that because they want their person that they're, doing their assisted teaching hours to get it and to understand and to like be in this like perfect and be able to do this exercise and be able to do this. Like, well, maybe this body can't do or isn't supposed to or doesn't need to do that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I actually remember from my teacher training years ago and working with newer teachers where you think like you're trying to do too much all at once.
Yes.
And so you're trying to fix everything at the same time. And there's layers to it. It takes time.
And it's not like it's not like you can fix your client in an hour.
Definitely not.
It's not going to happen.
It's a lifelong practice.
It's a lifelong practice. And then things change because it's like, oh, we've got more connection here. Everything's better here. Let's move here. But I think your point of too much, like just being like, I've got so much, it's that same kind of almost like I've got to like, they've got to be able to do this. I've got to be able to teach this. They've got to be not bored and I've got to teach them new things because I feel like with social media, it's this whole feeding into that mindset. Yeah,
it definitely does because we're just seeing constant things constantly, right?
Yeah.
There's so much all the time. There's no space to sit back and be like, to have that critical thinking, to think, okay, does this client need this? What is this influencer actually showing me? What is this exercise for even?
What is the and it's like I just had a flash of because you and I both went through our trainings before all this social media stuff, and so like it was like if you're in the studio you're having to we probably had to have that critical thinking quicker in terms of because we didn't have an outside of our studio environment to feed us this.
Well, there's no online sources.
There was nothing. Yeah. So it's kind of like you learned in your little bubble.
Yep.
For lack of a better word.
Yeah, with your mentor teacher.
Yeah. So it wasn't as noisy. You were able to kind of be in a space without a lot of noise.
Yeah.
And then go home and be with your manual and whatever and not have all that noise.
And there wasn't the pressure of having yourself as an infomercial constantly, which like we all now are like expected on social media to be presenting our work constantly.
Yeah.
And that comes with a lot of negative feedback. Some positive, but I mean mostly negative. And I think
people can be mean.
Yeah. And I think that comes with a lot of pressures as well of newer teachers thinking and experienced teachers thinking they have to show fun and flashy and vibrant things all the time on the equipment. I mean, to the point where the other day we saw something where somebody was doing literally a dance choreography on the reformer.
Yep.
And that was something where we were like, okay, well, that's fun for a video, but that is not Pilates and that is not functional movement and that's not something you're going to give somebody. But it's but it was fun to watch.
It was fun to watch in that moment, and so that's kind of like knowing the difference of that,
right? Like, how can people learn that differentiation between this is fun to watch for the views and the fun of Instagram, but this is not something that a teacher's going to be giving their client necessarily.
When they also it's when social media and everything, like I remember first getting on Instagram and I didn't want to be on Instagram, so I would ask my clients, oh, can we film you doing this or video you doing this? Yes. So I would do like if they were going to do something for the first time and we're like, ooh, I'm excited. So it wasn't perfect, right? It wasn't, this like beautiful whatever, but it was theirs,
process.
right? It was showing the process.
Yeah.
And people's comments were mean.
Oh.
Well, their arms aren't straight, or this isn't happening, or this isn't. And I'm like, these are my clients you're bashing online. So I kind of stopped doing that. But it's like, this social media thing, it's supposed to be this perfection.
Yeah.
And
it's an image.
It's an image. But I think it's so much more fun to actually show work, like to show.
Yeah. Well, the learning process.
The learning
right?
process.
And actually that makes me think of a post that I saw on Instagram of another teacher who is fantastic, and she does great work at trauma-informed Pilates. And she was talking about this idea of like, can we keep an open mind and keep more of a curiosity mindset so we can have discussions within Pilates, not have this mean,
combative,
combative type of environment, because then we can show things like that where it's like, look, this client's trying this for the first time. Let's see what they do.
Yeah, and it's going to be messy. It's going to be them figuring things out.
And I think that would be much more helpful for new teachers and teacher trainees to be able to see more messiness, because then they're not expecting somebody to be perfect right away.
We need to do that on our Instagrams.
Maybe we should.
Now that we're in the same space. But it's true. It's like, because you have all these younger teachers, I have a lot coming into my teacher training, and they're going into these classes, and being, thought that it has to be this way and it has to be perfect and this and that. And then they're on social media, and it's like this whole, and it's like, and then they're in observing, and they're like, oh, well, that person wasn't this. It's like, no, they're still figuring out where they are in space.
They're figuring
it out.
Yeah, because then you'll hear students will ask, oh, well, why didn't you correct this or that?
Yep.
And that's okay to ask, and they should.
Yeah.
But part of that is, well, I was working on this person with X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. We can't also get to A, B, C.
Yeah.
Like, it's a process, it's a practice, it takes time.
And it changes every time they come in. And I think it's also, I think, like, I remember I have a client that I don't remember what he was doing, but my whole focus was to get him to look up. He kept wanting to, like, look down.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of stuff going on. But the whole session's like, can we look forward? Can you look at that tree? Can you look at this? Can you look at... Because it was like, I didn't want him to, like, go outside and fall.
Right. Because that is a big thing.
That is a big thing. And so everything else was messy, but it was like, by the time he left, now it's not perfect. But I was like, we've been working on it, but, that's...
But that was your goal for that
Mm-hmm.
client for that time.
Yeah.
And so that's what matters.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was my first time with him. I'm like, oh, yeah, this has got to be the priority right now.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll have clients that are super uncoordinated, literally just cannot get the choreography, can't do anything, but I'm wanting to keep them moving because they just need to keep moving. And that's the goal for this session. If I say, straighten your elbows and the elbows are bent and they just keep doing the same thing and it's frustrating, but you know what? Today's session, we're just trying to keep moving, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But
that might be good on social media. It's like to show, hey, all out there, show the messy, show the learning process,
Mm-hmm.
show, look how far this has come.
Yeah.
Without it being this perfect sunset behind you.
Perfectly set up. Yeah. And again, it is in all industries. Like, we just see it constantly now. It's just everywhere. Yeah. But it's good to take that step back and realize, like, oh yeah, social media is there for the views and the likes and the clicks. It can be, if we do think critically, it can be used well as a tool to connect with people and to learn from mentor teachers and other people you may not connect with in the real world that you previously wouldn't have had access to.
Yeah. And there are very few and far between. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. teachers out there that actually do that.
Yeah.
Like, I know Kara does it, or I don't know if she's been doing it lately, but she would do it.
Yeah.
And show, like, you know, a Kathy Grant exercise and kind of go through it.
Yeah.
I try to do it on Mondays, and you'll be doing it too, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, and so it's good to connect with those pages and those accounts of people that have the experience, the expertise, who are that foundational long-term knowledge, and know how to weed out the people who are the influencers and the fun
which is fun
clicks.
to watch. You know, it's fun to watch, but I think for like knowing, and I think with Kevin's, I almost said Kevin Bacon,
different,
so similar. But with his and talk, I think it's just this whole understanding, not what is Pilates, like we talked about, and what is not Pilates. But when you're in your teacher training and you're learning either the traditional, like Joseph Pilates, or you're learning Eve Gentry, or you're going through Heritage with, you know, Karen, Kathy Green, whatever it is you're learning, doesn't mean that what's out there you're learning is wrong.
Yeah.
What you're learning is the foundation of Kathy Grant or Eve Gentry or Joseph Pilates and their work, and just understanding that someone out there on social media can easily take something and make something up or get creative in a good or a bad way.
Yeah, and just because something is not classical or traditional does not mean it's bad, because a lot of the creativity can be great. Again, if it works for that person and if it's safe and if it's necessary.
Using
if
the
there's
apparatus
purpose.
for the purpose of the apparatus.
If there's that purpose. And that's what he says in his email. Like, some creativity is fabulous. A lot of it's not. Some of it is.
But I think if you understand the foundation, like you were saying, you would know, okay, that is good creativity.
Yeah.
Or no, that is just not safe.
Yeah.
And not good for my...
And that's where
critical
thinking, expertise, education, that's where that comes in. And you need to be able to make that differentiation.
Yeah.
And it just is important, especially these days. I mean, social media is not going anywhere. We're going to keep seeing stuff online, and some of it's fun and some of it's not safe. And it is what it is.
But I also think, and I go on a tangent here. This is where I get nervous because it's like whatever. But I do think it's important, and we've talked about it before, is that critical thinking, knowing social influencers, knowing if someone, because a lot of the mentors and a lot of the teachers that are out there that work and from the foundation are not on social media or are not a huge presence on social media. And so understanding the history and understanding the foundation of the generations of ones that did get creativity out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
And understanding where that is coming from too. Because then you're not going to have the question, are you teaching me what is correct? Because you'll know where it came from.
Yeah. And
that's just my...
I mean, and there's plenty of like great books to read and stuff offline that can really lend more of an understanding of the foundations. Like if you've already done your teacher training and you're out teaching and kind of lost and like, well, wait, what is this that I'm seeing? I think there's some great books to read to reconnect to that like foundational knowledge. Which then, I mean, just like a house, like the metaphor is always like, if you build a strong foundation, then you build up and it's, it
will last.
It will last.
Yeah. Same with Pilates.
Yeah. So then you can, again, do some creative things with some clients when it's appropriate. And it's great. It's fine. Yeah.
Because sometimes a client comes in that can't do Pilates and you've got to think outside the box, but this foundation is still there. The purpose, the critical thinking.
Yeah.
Even though you're probably going to pull from different toolboxes you have.
Lots of different stuff. Yeah. I mean, and we were talking about that earlier today.
Yeah.
Where we're like, the pre-Pilates work I love.
Yeah.
I mean, some people cannot do what you would consider classical, traditional Pilates.
Yep.
And there are some clients I don't do Pilates with in their Pilates sessions. They're doing pre-Pilates, functional training, other types of movement work to get to the goal that they're here for.
Yeah. And that's it. Why are they here? Why are they seeing you? What's their goal? Not what you think they should be doing.
Yeah. And I think what we always say, like trying to just stay true to yourself as a teacher is the really biggest thing. Being authentic for yourself.
For you.
No matter what all these other things are that we're seeing online. But it just is so easy to second guess ourselves when we are seeing all these influences.
It's a lot of pressure,
online.
for especially I think for newer teachers coming out into the world.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, you don't have that confidence that starts to build the more people you see, the more kind of information you get. So it can be, I can imagine, unnerving.
Very much.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, I would hate to be a new teacher coming out into this world. I just wouldn't like it at all.
Well, it's just hard with social media. It just is. It can be used as a positive tool. Often it's not.
I mean, I remember when a website was stressful.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Now that's just old
Now
fashioned.
it's just like, whatever. But
That's
like,
just
oh,
old school.
Like, now I have to do a website? I don't know how to do that. You had to hire people.
Yeah. Now you just slap it up there.
Slap it up there. Yeah.
But overall, just because someone else is doing something else doesn't mean what you're doing is wrong. So trust your mentor teachers, trust your teacher training programs, especially when they're a comprehensive program with somebody who has decades of experience.
Yeah, because that's your foundation.
That's your foundation.
That's your touchstone to return to. That's your person that your school, your community that should always be a part of.
Yeah.
I feel should always be a part of.
And
you and your authentic teaching.
Yeah. I mean, and stay curious, ask questions, and always keep learning.
Yeah. Never stop learning.
Yep. That's super important.
And we'll go into that more in our certification episode.
For next time.
So, we didn't even... So who is are we our sponsor?
Our sponsor is ourselves because we have 2 Pilates Chicks studios.
Woo! Here at the actual virtual corner of Brentwood and Santa Monica. It's like we are literally on the line.
Yep. We are on the...
Behind is Brentwood. To the right and forward is Santa Monica.
If you're facing that way,
it's right that way. They're like, I don't know what you're facing. So if you're in LA, and then we have our workshop, our virtual workshop in November 16th, which is on that the queuing outdated to updated. And you can go on our website, book your spot.
And on Instagram, 2 Pilates Chicks.
TikTok, 2 Pilates Chicks. I think that's it. We're on YouTube too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just all over the place.
You can find us.
And now we have a little home.
2 Pilates Chick Studios in LA / Brentwood.
So thank you for joining us. That was fun. And we'll probably hopefully get some feedback from Mr. Kevin Bowen, who I adore. Love him. Hi, Kevin. And if you don't know who he is, Google, because you should.
Yeah.
You should all know.
One of those foundational teachers.
Yeah. Well, and if you look at the history of PMA and everything that our industry, he's a huge part. Yeah.
Which a lot of new teachers don't know about anymore, which we'll get into in the next one.
So thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.